we can therefore talk more personally about you, and we thank you for that and for indeed telling us a little bit more about your culture, because it's a very personal story, yours, and you gave some of your views to a Business Week story about how you perhaps would have come out earlier if you'd known the reception you would have got.
Yeah, growing up in the Midwest, I think that it was not a very inclusive environment when I was young, and in the 70s and 80s, that wasn't a very popular thing. And so there was a lot of pressure, I think, to conform to the standards. But as I grew with my experience and I got more comfortable with Dow, and I realized what the Dow culture was like, I became comfortable to come out to the entire organization. And I did that after some health issues, and basically went through a journey that said, I'm going to do this and I'm going to move on with my life. And I came out in a webcast to 53,000 employees on Coming Out Day in October 2014.
But it took you a long time to get there. For those employees or potential employees who maybe want to come in the door and from day one want to be able to live their life openly, how do you encourage those people, or how do you create an environment, I should say, where those people feel comfortable in being who they are now rather than having to wait?
Well, that's the entire reason for coming out. As I was moving up the organization, I was in the running to be COO, and then that preceded me being CEO. At the time I said, you know, how's it going to look if people know that I'm gay, but I'm not out openly, and they want to come to work at Dow? And our industry had historically been a very white male industry. So we'd been trying to get inclusion from a gender diversity standpoint for 30 years. We created our first LGBT organization 18 years ago. So this year will celebrate 19 years. What we try to do as leaders is create a safe environment where people can come to work. We want them to bring their whole selves to work. Our LGBT organization has more than 4,000 members. So today, the new Dow spun out of Dow.25 is 37,000 employees. So more than 4,000 members in our organization. 80% of them are allies. They don't identify as LGBT, but they're allies. And what we find in hiring is that when young people come in and want to hire into the organization, one of the first things they look at is, will my friends be accepted here? Will they be able to work here? Will they be treated equally with me? About 80% of young people in hiring tell us that that's a key value that they desire. So we approach it from a standpoint of inclusion. It isn't about, you know, we've passed the age of just tolerance. We're into the age of acceptance, but now it really needs to be about inclusion. They've got to be included. They've got to be given equal opportunities. They've got to be given chances for advancement. And while we don't force anybody to come out, that's a decision everybody has to make, we can provide the environment, the resources, and the support network to do that. A lot of people don't feel comfortable coming out at work. Maybe like me, they have personal reasons for not wanting to do it. Maybe in their calculation, they think the risk is more than the reward. And if you're in the United States today, in 26 states, you can still be fired for being LGBT.
And how is that conversation changing? If you are a company or part of Dow based in a state that is like that, are you having conversations with senators, with legislators to be able to change the discourse there? In a huge way. In 2005, Dow was the first company to join the HRC Corporate Equality Index. And if you look at that index today, there are probably 80% of the Fortune 500 that are part of that index. So business has moved in when government has not addressed some of these issues and created a safe environment. And what we can do is we can protect people. We can make sure that they don't get fired for their sexual orientation. We can make sure they get domestic partner benefits, equal benefits to their straight counterparts at work. But we may not be able to protect them in the normal marketplace, like with housing, adoption. They may be discriminated against in those areas. But we can go to bat for them. So, you know, Dow people were involved in the work that went into the amicus brief for the Marriage Act. The legislation or the case that went to the Supreme Court actually had some Dow contributors to it. We've been actively involved when bills have gone to the State House in Louisiana, for example. Just before Governor Jindal left, there was a bill coming in to really push religious liberty and push LGBT rights back. 12 employees from 2 of our sites in Louisiana showed up at
the hearing that day to testify, as well as IBM and Dow were the two big names that were there, as well as some support from the Greater New Orleans organization. So business is having a voice, and businesses all around are saying this is the right thing to do, and I think communities and governments are listening.